Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Dallas Meditation Center. I just got a message that says you are live, and I'm grateful to be alive. So, I hope everyone's staying cool in this hot weather, and I'm welcoming everyone to check in and type anything you're grateful for, anything you're welcoming into your life in the chat box. Okay. Why don't we start with the opening affirmation today? So, noble community, we gather here now to honor the way of peace and nonviolence, the way of wisdom and compassion, and the way of joy and beauty, in solidarity with one another, with all humanity, and with all life on earth. Friends on the path, we gather here now to deepen our solidity like a mountain and to renew our freshness like a flower.
Through mindful
Sitting and walking, mindful singing and breathing, and mindful speaking and listening. Family of awakening, we gather here now to celebrate the one infinite light that shines through many religions and cultures, to cultivate the wisdom of our many teachers, both ancestral and contemporary, and to affirm the capacity within ourselves and all persons of every race, gender, orientation, and tradition to realize full and complete enlightenment. Okay. So looking at the comments, I see that John Rousel has checked in, bowing in from Oak Cliff. Mother Wilson says it's great to be here. Catherine bows in and is grateful for our practice and inviting in peace and calm. Kim says Amitabha. Let's see. And Rita just chimed in saying grateful for being healthy, bowing in. Okay. Mother Wilson says, my name is Barbara, but I use this for business. Okay, thank you. And Billy says hi. So, did we want to do the medicine Buddha, Jan?
Yes.
Okay. So I will turn it over to Bobby for the medicine Buddha.
Just put it in front of
To the altar.
Om Namo Amitabha
Guru
Vajraya Prabha Rajaya Tathagataya Arhate Samyak Sambuddhaya Tadyata Om Vaishashe Vaishashe Mahavaishashe Raja Samudgate Swaha. Om Namo Bhagavate Vaishasha Guru Vaidurya Pravarajaya Tathagataya Arhate Samyak Sambuddhaya Tadyata Om Vaishashe Vaishashe Mahavaishashe Raja Samudgate Swaha. Om Namo Bhagavate Vaishasha Guru Vaidurya Pravarajaya Tathagataya Arhate Samyak Sambuddhaya Tadyata Om Vaishashe Vaishashe Mahavaishyaje Raja Samukate Svaha.
Let's listen to 3 sounds of the bell before we begin our guided meditation.
So just taking a moment to be aware of your surroundings. Be aware of the presence of the people that you're meditating with, even though you can't see them. And being aware that our connection is a kind of energy that goes beyond space and time. We are connected, whether we are in the presence of one another or not. And so when you're ready, just take a look into your body, your posture. Feel yourself very grounded, whether you're sitting on a cushion or in a chair or lying down. Feel the weight of your body as it settles into the chair, the cushion, the floor. Aware of my body, I breathe in. Smiling to my body, I breathe out. Aware of body, smiling. Looking at the roots of pain in my body, I breathe in. Smiling to the roots of pain in my body, I breathe out. Roots of physical pain, smiling. Aware of the contents of my mind, I breathe in. Smiling to the contents of my mind, I breathe out. Aware of mind, smiling. Looking at the roots of the pain in my mind, I breathe in. Smiling to the roots of the pain in my mind, I breathe out. Roots of mind's pain, smiling. Looking at the roots of the pain of fear, I breathe in. Smiling to the roots of the pain of fear, I breathe out. Roots of fear, smiling. Looking at the roots of the feeling of insecurity, I breathe in. Smiling to the roots of the feeling of insecurity, I breathe out. Roots of insecurity, smiling. Looking at the roots of the feeling of sadness, I breathe in. Smiling to the roots of the feeling of sadness, I breathe out. Roots of sadness, smiling. Looking at the roots of the feeling of anger, I breathe in. Smiling to the roots of the feeling of anger, I breathe out. Roots of anger, smiling. Looking at the roots of the feeling of jealousy, I breathe in. Smiling to the roots of the feeling of jealousy, I breathe out. Roots of jealousy, smiling. Looking at the roots of the feeling of attachment, I breathe in. Smiling to the roots of the feeling of attachment, I breathe out. Roots of attachment, smiling. Looking at the roots of the feeling of being caught, I breathe in. Smiling to the roots of the feeling of being caught, I breathe out. Roots of being caught, smiling. Looking at the roots of the feeling of joy, I breathe in. Smiling to the roots of the feeling of joy, I breathe out. Roots of joy, smiling. Looking at the roots of the joy of liberty, I breathe in. Smiling to the roots of the joy of liberty, I breathe out. Roots of joy of liberty, smiling. Looking at the roots of the joy of release, I breathe in. Smiling to the roots of the joy of release, I breathe out. Roots of joy of release, smiling. Looking at the roots of the joy of abandoning, I breathe in. Smiling to the roots of the joy of abandoning, I breathe out. Roots of joy of abandoning, smiling. Looking at the roots of the neutral feeling, I breathe in. Smiling to the roots of the neutral feeling, I breathe out. Roots of neutral feeling, smiling. May all beings be happy. May all beings be free. May all beings be joyful. May all beings be at peace. Brahma Vihara Maitri. Brahma Vihara Karuna. Brahma Vihara Mudita. Brahma Vihara Upeksha. May all beings be happy. May all beings be free. May all beings be joyful. May all beings be at peace. May all beings be at peace. May all beings be at peace.
All right. Thank you, Bobby, for the guided meditation. Very calming. Many roots, some gnarled, some difficult to walk over and look at, some I appreciate looking at. It's a lot easier to smile at some of those. Let's start with the refuge chant before we move into our Dharma talk. Om Namo Amitabha Buddhaya. Amitabha Buddham Sharanam Gacchami. We take refuge in the awakening heart of infinite light, that which shows us the way in this life. Om Namo Amitabha Dharmaya. Amitabha Dharmam Sharanam Gacchami. We take refuge in the awakening path of infinite light, the way of understanding and of love. Om Namo Amitabha Sangaya. Amitabha Sangam Sharanam Gacchami. We take refuge in the awakening community of infinite light, those who live in harmony and awareness. Okay, next up we've got a Dharma talk from Anne, who throughout all this online time has been co-facilitating and sometimes behind the scenes, sometimes in front of the scenes. So I'm very interested to hear what she has to say.
Hello, everyone. This month, we've been talking about actively together, how we can be actively together, stay actively together, and what this means for us, both personally and collectively. Last week, I asked Bobby for some guidance about what I could talk about. And she said something that jumped out at me with a big ol' yes. She said, our practice is more than thinking about it. It's about engaging. So tonight, I invite you to consider practicing by engaging with oneself and each other. What does this mean for us right now in this deeply layered, challenging time? And what if we're having difficulty keeping routine and our practice has been losing steadiness? From my experience, I can offer 3 things that keep me currently engaged in my practice. Accept, simplify, curate. I accept what is my reality. I simplify my practice so that it seems effortless. And I curate it, tailor-made to fit me in a way that feels nourishing, connective, and life-giving. So let's start with accept. Going back to where I was about this time last year, this has been an extremely emotional year for me personally, not to mention the last several months collectively. During this time, as can happen when one is seeing a good personal therapist, my personal practice began dovetailing with my personal therapy, and it birthed a kind of mantra for me. This mantra allows me to own what is true for me in any given moment. It's been especially helpful when I notice uncomfortable or painful thoughts, emotions, wishes, desires, and limitations within me, often seated under rage, defeat, sorrow, or anguish. My mantra is, this is my reality. Now, this can get dark, but then if we're not willing to engage with our darker facets, to own them, how can our practice grow? And more importantly, how can we possibly expect to grow enough to accept the darker realities of our world. And I want to be clear, saying this is my reality is often less about what's going on outside of me and more about my reaction to it, my hatred, my anger, my sadness, my righteousness, my desire for things to be the way I want them to be, and the painful reality that comes with owning that, both that things aren't my way and that 2-year-old voice saying, but I want it my way. Because when I see that, I can name it, and I begin the healing process within to then also be able to affect healing without. So I might feel my anger and then ask myself, what's underneath this? What is my pain screaming to say? I hate that things are this way and I want them to be different. Okay, this is my reality. When I do that, things soften. I soften. My body often unconstricts. And I can suddenly, gently accept what is, both in me and on a larger scale, the microcosm and the macrocosm. Moreover, and what's been surprising to me, is that when I accept and that release happens, compassion often rushes in to fill the void. Throughout the day, I continue to engage with myself in this way, in this practice. Because if I can accept my current reality, I'm free. And then I can deal with what is and act from a place that is based in truth, compassionate truth, not the pain. This is hard and deep and real and good and rich and true. With acceptance of what is going on in here, I can stay sane and can accept the painful reality of what is going on out there. Because when I accept my reality, I'm anchored, I'm free, I'm home. Simplify. When I fall out of a routine that I want to keep, one thing I know to do that is tried and true is simplify. If my practice, or anything for that matter, feels like a chore, that's when I know it's time to scale back, pare down, and get minimal, smaller bites. I learned from motivational interviewing, a psychology counseling technique, that in order to make a new habit or behavior change, there has to be two things. Enough willingness to do the thing, and the thing must be simple enough that it feels like a no-brainer. Like, yeah, I could do that. Otherwise, we won't do it. When I began meditation as a regular practice years ago, in my late 20s, starting here at the DMC, building a sense of discipline felt good to me. I was someone who wanted more discipline in my life and to grow in patience and flexibility, and I thought that was the way. So I started sitting for 10 minutes and then worked up to 20. And then it turned into this goal-oriented thing of shooting for twice a day, because that's what I'd heard made the biggest difference in people's lives as far as keeping them patient and less irritable around their coworkers and loved ones. And I wanted to be like that. So that's what I aimed for. And I kept it for a while. But when I look back, I just remember the rigidity of my practice. the blankness of it. It had no heart. I did feel heart, however, when I practiced here at the DMC, in Sangha, in community. I'll come back to why I think that was in a minute. Perhaps unsurprisingly, when I've focused on goals for my meditation practice, like time length, that is also when I've had the longest periods of not practicing. Similar to our talk about art making and creativity back in June, as soon as it becomes about the product, creativity dies. When I did practice, maybe my tolerance for sitting grew a bit, and maybe my posture improved. I was big on the half lotus position. But so what? In hindsight, it felt like a drag. It felt empty. So it's no wonder I stopped. I said a moment ago that the only time I felt heart in my practice back then was meditating in community. I think this was because not only was it when I got to experience the love and vibrational benefits of collective hearts, but also I think that my community, this community, had more compassion for me than I was able to give myself at that time. When I began to let go of goals and ideals for my practice, it needing to be for a certain length, in a certain posture, at a certain time, at the same time every day, I was able to pay attention to and listen to what my higher self, my capital S self, my bodhisattva self, needed for my practice. Eventually, as my self-acceptance has grown, and I've learned to open my heart to me, the way my community so readily has, my rigidity and grip on what I was trying to make my practice into loosened. Really, I threw it out the window. I'm happy to say that I have simplified my practice down to what works for me. The only thing that is remotely the same from when I began meditating all those years ago is that I sit on a cushion when I wake up. That's pretty much it. I don't meditate at the same time every day, or for the same length of time, or for the same number of breaths, or in the same position, etc. I've simplified by listening to what I'm willing to do every day. That, sure, takes some effort, but feels effortless to me. What does a no-brainer practice look like for me? I do that. Because not only have I broken it down to what works for me, I've also curated it to fit me, which brings me to my final point. Like with art and creativity, it's about letting go and trusting the process. For me, it seems that when my practice became about the goals, aka the product, I lost the heart. Over time, especially in the last year and a half, not only did I begin letting my practice be what it needed to be, I began opening to what felt good, nourishing, grounding, and life-giving. I began noticing what makes my heart sing and incorporating that. For me, that's largely about sitting in front of my window, looking out on nature every morning. Seeing nature makes my heart sing. If the weather's cooler outside than inside, I'll even throw open the sash, take a big whiff of earthy air, and feel the breeze on my face like a hand cupping my cheek and saying, "Good morning." Since becoming a bellmaster and regular facilitator, my practice has become even richer than before. Not only do I get to give myself the gift of replenishment through commitment of engaging with my spiritual community, but it's given me another gift to add to my personal practice. I noticed that I love chanting the Medicine Buddha chant together here, singing anything together here, even in the days long before COVID. Coming in as bellmaster every few Sundays during COVID or watching online, I'd sing along and hear in my ears or in my head our collective voices. And I noticed I felt joyful and comforted doing that. Then sometime about a month ago, as I was going through stacks and stacks of paper, my quarantine home project, I came across a folder of meditation-related handouts and flyers from the DMC. One handout from Brother Chi Sing had 2 examples of sadhana, or daily practice rituals. They were time-stamped, minute by minute, in true Chi Sing fastidiousness of how one might do an hour practice and a 5-minute practice. I looked at the 5-minute example, which was simply 7 o'clock, incense/candle, 7:01, 3 prostration bows, 7:02, chanting, 7:03, 10 mindful breaths, 7:04, prayer, and then 7:05, mindful living. If we were talking about motivational interviewing, this would be the part where I'd go, yeah, I could do that. But moreover, the chanting caught my eye, and I thought, I'd love to bring chanting into my practice. Why didn't I think about that? Because as Bobby said, it's not about thinking. It's about engaging, listening, sensing. I've since adopted this format, and while, as I said, I don't keep time, I have learned to let my practice evolve to fit me, not fit myself into a practice. I sit on my cushion in front of my beloved window with my windowsill of 5 or 6 nature objects that feel special to me. And I chant and breathe and pray. And then I stand up and I bow, say thank you, and start my day. This is how I engage with myself. And I can honestly say now that I love my practice. I love what it has become and is becoming. I love that it suits my heart. And for the first time ever, I love that I can say that my practice makes my heart sing. So I invite you to consider, what does your heart want? Do you know? Have you heard it lately? Have you given it a loving space to be with you, to be with community? And are you engaging with it in some regular-ish way, at a pace that you and your heart can depend on to refuel, that feels good simply to you? Are you letting your practice be what it needs to be? Or are you stuck in some old mindset about what you think it should be? Could you pare it down? Could you open to it differently? It feels appropriate to me in the face of challenges that to adapt and keep a practice when it feels like we're losing steadiness, we must first accept what is for us. Be willing to accept our needs by simplifying our practice to meet them. and then curate our practice to be a nourishing gift of connectedness. I believe that when we do this, we can show up for ourselves and each other in the ways that make our hearts sing.
Okay. Thank you for the talk, Anne. I really like that closing question. What does my heart want? Seems like something I can really consider and reflect on in the coming weeks, coming days, as I sit in my practice. So now we're going to close with some announcements before we do our closing chant. I think the first announcement is that the DMC runs on donations. You can always donate by texting mindful to 44321. Also, September 17th, Tuesday, September 17th, is North Texas Giving Day, in which all donations that we receive on that day will be matched. And so we really appreciate if you tune in that day for donations. Additionally, we'll all be meeting on a Zoom, on the Zoom link in the chat box after our meeting ends. So go ahead and click there, and I see some people are already starting to join. Did you have any other announcements, Bobby? Anyone else?
Yeah. Next Sunday. Yes, other announcements. She Sing's birthday is September the 2nd. So the first Sunday in September, we're going to commemorate his birthday and his life. And we'll be joined by a special guest, Brian Kimmel. Some of you know him as BK. BK knew Brother She Sing. I think they kind of went through aspirancy together, or they knew about it with each other. Anyway, excuse me. He's a very fun and dynamic speaker and person. He's an artist, a musician, and he'll probably sing for us. So you don't want to miss that. It's going to be fun. I might invite you, since we're talking about this now, if you have a favorite story or anecdote about She Sing, why don't you send it in to us and we can read them when we gather together on that evening. So, yeah, I think that's it. So we'll do our closing chant. So I just do it. Okay. We'll have some bells and then the closing chant. Countless beings we vow to free, ceaseless afflictions we vow to end, limitless truth doors we vow to open, the deepest paths of awakening we vow to realize. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you in a minute or two on Zoom.